Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you in virtual form this morning, even though I can't actually be there. And I want you to know that even though I'm not there, right now it's evening in Mozambique, and I'm here and I'm encouraged because I know that I'm with you right now, present in your hearts. And so it's really exciting for me to know that you guys are watching this even though I'm not there. I also want you to know that this is the first time I've ever done a YouTube sermon, if you would, before. And so I'm quite nervous, and like I always do, I got to look at my notes. So if you see me nodding back and forth, it's not because I think I'm really spiritual and need to be agreeing with myself. It's because I got to find my notes and stay on target. I also want you to know that this morning I'm very excited for the team that's planning to come out. They've taken that first step, being introduced to the church. And it's the first step to a long journey. It's going to be really, really awesome, but at times it's going to be quite difficult. And I know that firsthand. Anytime you go overseas, anytime you serve God in missions, it's really difficult when you have to come to other people and say, hey, can you help me? For me, that's the most difficult part of my job. I really don't like having to say, I need something financially. And I know that if you're doing a short-term trip, it is often far more difficult. And the reason is you tend to get far more criticism than someone like me who's a long-term missionary. The truth is that without fail, you're going to get some criticism, and it tends to always be the same thing. The same criticism that comes up over and over and over again, and it's actually a question, and that question is, why should I give you, going for 3 or 4 weeks over to Africa, why should I give you, money, like $12,000 worth of airfare just to go over to Africa? Wouldn't I be better off to send that money personally to the missionary who lives there? Wouldn't it go further? Wouldn't it be better? Now I have to tell you, I'm the guy who would be getting that money if they didn't give it to the short term. I'm the guy they're talking about sending the money to. And so I think in that regard, I am the best equipped to answer that question for anybody out there who's heard it before. And if I'm going to answer that question, I'm not going to answer it outright. I'm going to be a little bit like Jesus. He asked questions to questions. And so I'm going to ask you a question this morning that'll answer that one for you. Starting off with a bit of a statement here. When God looked at the people He created, He had a choice. You see, He'd sent messengers. He'd given the 10 Commandments on stone tablets. He'd sent practically hundreds of prophets. And He had a choice. Do I keep doing what I've been doing? Do I keep sending miracles? Do I keep sending gifts? Do I keep sending prophets just like people send packages and money to missionaries? Do I keep doing that? Or do I make a sacrifice and do I come in person? And so the question I have for you right now is this. Do you think He should have just stayed home? Do you think Jesus should have just stayed away and continued to send miracles? Would you have rather to have a Mount Rushmore style cliff that had every word that God wanted you to know written on it, rather than have Jesus personally speak it to the people? Would that have been better? Now, of course it wouldn't have been. That's ridiculous. We needed Jesus Christ to come down to this earth, to be present with us. A pillar of fire leading me around every day is not going to do. Getting another prophet who tells me what to do will not be enough. God knew that He needed to send His Son. We need to have a ministry of presence. So why did God come at such personal cost for the people that He made out of dust? Just like we make Play-Doh. Little Play-Doh people. Why did God choose to come to people that He made out of dust? And the answer to that question is that God knows that there is no better ministry than a ministry of presence. God desires to be present, and He desires for us to be present in the lives of others. The Bible says that God is our refuge and our strength. He's an ever-present help in times of trouble. God knows the value of being with us every day. I want you to think about something. Why did Jesus come to earth? Now, I know everybody's response is, He came to earth to die on the cross so I could be forgiven. Okay, that's true. It's very, very true. But I want you to remember something. Before Jesus came, people still sinned. And people still receive forgiveness for their sins. You see, what they did is they made a sacrifice. They sacrificed an animal, a lamb, for their sins. So the truth is that if Jesus hadn't come, I could still receive forgiveness, but it would be through going out to the pasture, finding a pure sheep and cutting its throat, making a sacrifice to God. It would be a forgiveness, but that forgiveness was only for my sins of the past. I would not be living in a state of forgiveness. So why did Jesus come? Why did Jesus make that ultimate sacrifice? He made that ultimate sacrifice so I would be completely forgiven. That I actually live in a state of forgiveness. My sins from my past, they're forgiven. My sins from right now, they're forgiven. And my sins of the future, they are forgiven. I'm living in a state of forgiveness. And it's only through that state of forgiveness that I can come to Jesus Christ personally. I can ask Him to be my Savior. And here's the key. Without Jesus dying on the cross, we couldn't have received God's Spirit living in us, the Holy Spirit, to be with us always, so that God could always be present in our lives. You see, the great sacrifice was so that God could fulfill the greatest ministry there is. It's a ministry of presence. He wanted to be with you this morning. He wants to be with you this afternoon. He wants to be with you all time so that He doesn't have to send a prophet, so that He can speak to you daily. I want to say this is a ministry that many churches have forgotten, and yet it's the most powerful ministry there is. It is a ministry of presence that truly changes lives. Jesus changed lives when He came to earth. He didn't change them just by preaching. He changed them by being present. He changed them by coming to earth and walking. He changed them by hanging out with the drunks and the addicts and the prostitutes and the thieves. He came and He made a difference by being present. He could have preached His message, but instead He chose to show that incredible message.